Hey, welcome to the Browncast. So last week, a Trump supporter elbowed a black guy at an event in North Carolina. Cops tackled the peaceful black guy and told the violent white man to sit down. Insane, right? And all caught on camera. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the incident and what it means to be a 70-year-old racist versus a young, freshly minted racist who supports Trump. So some of these guys that are going to the Trump events, that's the closest you can get to a KKK uh, to a
KKK
KKK
rally.
rally and in the mainstream, and it'd be like acceptable
Yeah.
because it's a huge hate fest. You can almost call it like therapy for the racist.
It's like,
Yeah.
it's it's therapeutic because they get to go and they get to vent all of their anger, and it's almost like a free pass.
um, I was like I actually read up on the one that happened today. Which one are you guys talking about?
Well, there's two that happened previously. One where the black guy was hit by like this 75-year-old guy. He was elbowed as the police were escorting him out. And after the old white person elbowed him, they told the white man to sit down, and then they handcuffed the black guy.
Oh yeah, they arrested him.
Yeah, and that's insane, right? That just goes to show you that it gives you an insight into what their default is, the state of mind of the people, that they assume that the black guy is at fault,
Yeah. Yeah. Even though he didn't do anything. I
even
mean,
though he didn't even do anything. Fine, he was
he
like
was.
maybe flicking the people off and yelling, but everyone was yelling at each other. And if you're a security or a police officer, you're supposed to be trained to deal with those situations. And the first thing they do is they drop him on the ground face down, and then they subdued him, and then they handcuffed him, and then
And
they
then what I thought was like the icing on the cake is that they didn't arrest the old guy until the next day. And
yeah.
I mean the sheriff, the guys that handcuffed the black guy, they
Right.
were right there. I mean, they saw everything go down. They saw that the guy didn't do anything at all
But,
to
but
instigate him personally.
the white guy was 75 years old.
78, I think.
78. I think
If
that
you're
maybe that has to do with it as well.
Well, the only reason why they arrested him también is because
They received a lot of complaints.
well, because of the
probably.
video evidence. If there's
Yeah.
no video evidence, these guys get away with these things.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
but what I wanted to talk about really quickly was about today's rally and how there were a lot of anti-protesters, and it kind of got like chaotic. And when Trump was being interviewed, they were hinting that he was at fault because of the messages that he's spreading.
Mhm.
So he's kind of incentivizing people to act out. And I'm kind of glad that today's event took place because it's really gonna like show people that Trump isn't really ready to handle like the message that he is spreading. And also I think now he's aware that there is a lot of resistance out there towards him, and he can't fight them all with force.
But
Um,
I don't
he
think he cares.
yeah, exactly. I don't know if he cares.
he well
Yeah.
he said that oh well, shame on us if we try to defend ourselves against like he was referring to the anti-protesters. If they hit us, they can kick us, but we're not allowed to do anything. We have to be like politically correct, and we have to be very gentle. We have to make sure that we don't hurt them.
Yeah,
And then he said, well, you know what, I'd rather be stronger than weak. So I think, yeah, you guys are right. He doesn't care. He is condoning
well, the
Yeah.
a
problem,
message.
the biggest problem with this whole phenomenon that Donald Trump is that nuance just went out the window. There is no he talks in absolutes, like the example that you just said, where he's saying that if these protesters are attacking us and kicking us, then we have to defend ourselves and be strong. There's no nuance there. He's using nothing but absolutes, extreme positions on
Yeah.
things. So most of the protesters are peaceful and they're in your face, and then they're just there to protest. Sure, like there are going to be some cases where protesters and anti-protesters are going to clash, but for the most part, the protesters are peaceful. But Donald Trump, he just went ahead and portrayed them as potentially dangerous to Trump's supporters. 'Cause
Yeah.
he said that if these guys are hitting us and kicking us, then we have to defend ourselves. So there is no nuance to him. There is no, you can't make any progress within where an individual is seeing everything as black or white.
Well, right.
And that's a problem, that's his position on everything. All of his positions are on the extreme side, where
Yeah.
and it's like a dichotomy. It's either good or bad.
But I think today's event is really going to scare like the Republican Party, especially if
No,
they have him
not at all.
as a prime. You don't think so?
Mm-mm.
Because it's just gonna set like the whole system into chaos. Like
Well, the
what if
re, re,
he
yeah.
what if like let's say he does become like the nominee and then he does get elected president?
Well, I mean,
What?
the Republicans have been scared for a while. I mean, they at this point they can't do anything about it. The cat's out of the bag. I hadn't heard what he just said right now. That was his response. That he was pretty much emboldening his supporters
Right.
to actually go out and keep behaving the way that we've seen in those videos. I mean, that's terrible. But there might be a silver lining, like they say. I think if we start seeing more of these attacks, more of these rallies that become overly uh, aggressive and violent, especially from the side of the Trump supporters, that might be his undoing. To be honest with you, because I mean, he cannot keep it up for how many months is it? 6 more months.
I think
Is
you're
it?
exactly right.
Oh,
So
I think this could be, if we start seeing more of these, because earlier you said that pretty much a Trump rally is like a KKK's wet dream or whatever. You didn't use that word, but I'm using it. But I think you were lumping too many people in there. I don't think that 100% of the people at the rally were racist, or they would have liked to be violent in that manner. I think it's a small minority, but that could be his undoing, because a lot of people are going to start distancing themselves if this keeps happening. That's my opinion. I think.
so well,
yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Dario. I think it is a small minority within the Trump supporters that are racist. But I believe when you get people in like big crowds, I think dynamics kind of has a lot to do, and there's just like so much energy, and there's so many people like yelling at your face that you get worked up,
Yeah.
yeah.
and it's very easy to lose control. And we went to an anti-Trump rally too here in Santa Monica. It wasn't as big, it was small, it was mostly Hispanics. There were some anti-protesters there that were there for Trump, and they were just kind of being peaceful. They weren't really getting violent, but they were speaking out their mind to us.
Well, this guy was anti-immigrant.
And
He
okay,
wasn't just like anti-protester, he was anti-immigrant as well. And
very
well, I got in his face.
lost it.
I didn't lose it.
Well, okay, you didn't lose it, but
But
you got in his face and you started yelling at him.
well, yeah, because I told him I told him that Trump doesn't give a shit about him. I said, "Do you realize Trump doesn't care about you? He's just using you."
But luckily for you, that guy didn't do anything. But if you get enough people that feel as
Oh
passionately
yeah.
as you do, and on your side and then on Trump's side, you're gonna get some some
I think that these
punches.
yeah, no, I think that there's definitely there's a lot of energy, and there's a lot of like raw emotions in those
Yeah, especially
events.
when you have like those two
And
opposing.
actually, yeah, and I think that I don't think that nothing has stopped Donald Trump at this point, and nothing really will. I mean, look at what he's calling for waterboarding. He's calling for like killing the entire family members of
What?
terrorists,
Mm.
and that stuff has not brought him down. So nothing's gonna bring him down. So what's gonna happen is if you start seeing more of these protesters at Trump events, then that's just I think that what the effect that it's gonna have is that the Trump supporters are gonna start showing up even more in bigger numbers, and they're gonna start expecting a big crowd of anti-Trump protesters, and then it's just gonna escalate, and then I think it's gonna get really out of hand.
I think I think it is building up to that.
Yeah, that's
And
based on what happened today. They're just gonna
yeah,
they're gonna see what happened, and then for the next event, they're just gonna go and they're gonna like bring all their buddies too and say, okay, we're expecting a lot of anti-Trump protesters. Let's go and make
right.
sure that they don't
But
drown him out,
is
or
it
that they don't cancel the event because of them.
I was just thinking of that right now when you were saying that that in future rallies that they might already start coming in with this mentality that there might be some anti uh, Trump protesters, and that they're gonna come with a mentality of being ready for anything, or to drown them out, or I mean, when you look at the guy that elbowed that black guy, the only thing that was going through his mind probably when he did it is that I can do this because this is what everybody in the stadium would like to do, or something like that, something to that effect. And if you start like especially since you said that he didn't really reprimand the guy that elbowed, or any of the other people that have been acting violently, he pretty much gave him a carte blanche, to keep doing it. And so if they start stepping it up, I think it might get to the point where the rallies themselves, even without any anti-Trump protesters, they're gonna start becoming violent within themselves, and that might be a good turn of events too, because now you're gonna get a situation where maybe they're gonna start trying to cancel the Trump rallies. I mean, that would be a good outcome too.
Yeah, that would, if today's event starts attracting even more extreme
Yeah,
people,
Well, it's gonna attract him from both sides. Yeah,
which
I think you.
which
it depends on what city it is, because I think you saw that old guy hitting the black guy. That was in the south, or somewhere over there close to the south. So I don't know that you could have that kind of a Trump rally that is so huge, or huge, without a lot of anti-Trump turnout, as you saw in Illinois today, because that was beautiful what they did today.
And you know what though? He what he could do is, he's not a very good politician in the sense that is not, he doesn't care about all of the normal things that a politician would try to care about. But the one thing that he could do is he could strategize better. And so what they may start doing is moving the events to places where there's more conservatives, and it's not going to
Mhm.
attract that many
Right.
anti-protesters.
I think if the Trump
Sorry, protesters, not anti-protesters. Sorry.
I think if Trump learned anything from this, is that he may have to stay away from cities that have a high percentage of Hispanics or
Well,
African Americans
or young liberal people,
or
because
liberals. Yeah, actually, I looked at the demographic of Chicago just before this talk, and the median age is like 37 years old. So for like males and females, it's like 30. So we are talking about a fairly young population.
what do you
Yeah.
think the profile is of? We know what the profile is of that 75-year-old guy that elbowed the black guy. I think we kind of understand what his upbringing was like, how he thinks, how he feels. But what do you think is the profile of a 22-year-old or a 30-year-old that's showing up to these events with like rage? You can almost see them with foam in their mouths because of their anger. What do you think their profile is? What do you like? Try to take a stab at like, what kind of life they've lived.
Oh man, that's a tough one, but I'm gonna say for the most part, and this probably cuts across all like age groups within the Trump supporters. I'm gonna say they're all like, or most of them are just high school educated, working class, rural. Not all of them, but I'm gonna say most of them, or very high majority are white, because I've seen some black people in there, and I've seen some Hispanics. So I mean, I don't know if that's any specificity as to what you were trying to get me to say, but that I think that's what it is. Mostly, it's you can tell in their faces. I mean, I don't pretend to be a guru or anything, but you can tell from their faces they're not the kind of people that have uh, maybe even as little as mingled with somebody from a different race or ethnicity, or gender identity. You can tell straight out that they come from a very specific mentality, very specific culture, very monotone.
And very insulated, right?
Yeah,
From
insulated is a good word. Yeah, because you can tell right away they've never dealt with anybody that's outside of their comfort zone. But going back to what I was saying earlier, I think there's an opportunity for some of the younger ones to actually defect from backing Trump so much. I think his most ardent supporters are the ones that grew up in different times, the ones that were displaced, maybe by black people, maybe by illegal immigrants. I don't think a 20, 30-year-old Trump supporter really holds that much of a grudge against Mexico. I mean, unless they're actively in those what do you call them, like the groups, the racist groups, KKK, or the patriotic groups.
Well,
What do they
well,
call them? Nationalistic, or I
yeah,
don't know what they're called.
yeah.
I don't think, unless you're one of those in one of those groups, then I think there's a real possibility that they can actually defect
Yeah, and that's
from
interesting,
Trump.
and that's a good point about the young ones because they've up until this point, if they're in their mid 20s, it sounds like they've had pretty limited exposure to other races, and also so that means that they've had very little opportunity to actually learn about other people, and so there's still hope for them because they can actually get exposed to Black people, to Hispanics at some point, maybe even as a result of these rallies they can start doing some more research on their own because it's pretty evident that there's a lot of willful ignorance on their part because these days there's a ton of information on the internet, but if you're only looking for the type of stuff that's going to confirm your own biases already, then you're gonna gravitate towards those nationalistic websites. You're gonna go to YouTube and you're gonna type specifically what you're looking for. You're not gonna if you go to YouTube and you think Black people are stupid, then you're gonna type in stupid Black people into YouTube, and that's what you're gonna get. You're not
Yeah.
gonna type in articulate, smart, professional, Black, educated people, right? And so you would hope that some of these guys, like you said, if there is some type of awakening, you would hope that it does happen, and it would happen with these younger ones because the older ones, their feelings, their way of being has ossified, and it ossified decades ago. So
Mhm.
you can
Yeah.
you can introduce them to the most charming, charismatic illegal immigrant, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
probably not going to do very much. And
Uh-huh.
you can introduce them to dozens of them, and it's not going to make a dent in how they feel about them. But maybe the young ones will.
Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna say maybe the ones in their 20s and their 30s, 40s probably not, but 20s and 30s they still can be brought around to reason. And I'm not saying that there should be a an organized movement to reach out to them. I think that the actions that we saw in that rally, that themselves, those are gonna have an effect on those people who are more open. Because I mean, I think we saw on the video, well, I think I saw it on the video, that there was a reaction from even the people that were sitting on the seats when that guy elbowed the Black guy. That it wasn't automatically a cheer from the younger ones. It was more of a, they got startled too. So that's a positive sign. I think that they're not so quick to back any type of just mindless action based on what they're all there for, simply because they're all there for the same guy. That doesn't mean that they're gonna back every single thing that one of the supporters does.
Uh, so the old people not being able to change their ways, I think that's a little bit biased on your part.
They're less likely to. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah, they may be less likely to, pero también I feel that you're less likely to be racist to the people that you know on a personal than the people that you haven't that you don't know on a personal level, and you just have like this misconstructed perception of what they are, right?
Right. But okay.
So I don't think it was fair for you.
Well, no, obviously. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of old people at Trump rallies who haven't decided who they're going to vote for. I mean, maybe they just like the energy that you get at a Trump rally, and that it might be a sizable number. But for the most part, whenever you're dealing with older people, they're really hard to change their ways. So if there is a Trump supporter, or if there was a person in the stands that actually came out and unequivocally criticized that guy, and turns out that the guy criticizing is a 75-year-old too, that just means that's somebody who was already there. I'm not saying that that it's impossible for older people to change their minds. I'm just saying it's very unlikely.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you can take it's very simple to 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 frame this in a way that makes a lot of sense. Let's just say that for 20 75 year olds that you take and you send them through this like re-education of meeting other people and trying to open up and trying to like get them not to be racist. Yeah, maybe one or two will actually end up
Yeah,
not being racist, but if you take 20 younger people in their 20s, you're probably going to get more, maybe like five or six. That's all I'm saying is
Uh,
just that when
Five or six that are
that are
racist,
no
or
out of take 20, how many of them, if you pass them through some form of re-education and exposure to other cultures, how many of them are likely to stop or at least get rid of some of their racist tendencies? And what I'm saying is that you're more likely to get more younger people to become less racist than older people. But
yeah,
it doesn't mean that old people
through
are
education and exposure.
through whatever it is that it takes to get people to stop being racist.
I
And so what I'm just saying is that it's because older people are very set in their ways, and it's like it really is like peeling an onion in order to get at the root cause of what makes them act that way. And you can think of younger people having less layers to peel through than the older
hmm
people,
yeah.
because it's sometimes people are just
That's a
people
good metaphor, by the way.
people act the way they act for very irrational reasons. It's not rational. It only becomes rational if you actually understand what it is that is at the root cause of it.
uh okay, I understand what you're saying, but I I don't agree with you. I think what you're saying sounds a little bit ageist to me.
You're defending the senior citizen group.
I am, because I honestly feel that they are a vulnerable population, and and society has like all of these misconceptions about them, and here you are talking about black people and not generalizing them, and not, you're defending them as a race, not having this built-in misconceptions, but you're over here like applying the same tactics to the older adults.
But I'm not saying all the old. I'm not generalizing because I'm not saying
But
every single old person.
But I don't think that it's fair for you.
Well,
I'm
no,
sorry that I'm
let me
getting off topic a little bit, but I don't think it's fair for you to say that,
no.
given the chance, older people are less likely to change.
No, Yesenia, you are completely correct in what you're saying, and is completely correct in what he's saying. It's just that you guys are using two very different instances or situations under which that particular test would take place. So it's essentially saying is that let's say you have 20 people that live in a white neighborhood, and you expose them to what it is to actually deal with people outside their comfort zone, or their bubble, their sphere, that they might come around after. Let's say that there's a controlled experiment, and after, but they go back to living their lives. I think what you're pretty much like steering towards is an experiment where you introduce 20 people from a neighborhood, you introduce them to a different setting, and then obviously the probability of them becoming more tolerant is greater because they're gonna have to adapt. You understand?
Yeah, and I was gonna I think you're touching on what I was gonna say next, which is uh I'm not being biased against senior citizens. I'm trying to look at it from a very logical point of view,
That
which is that one of the proven methods to get people to stop being so afraid of others and to get them to like break down all of these stereotypes that they have is by having them be friends and mix with other
cohabitate.
cultures, cohabitate, right? So if you're younger, you're more likely to have more friends from a diverse background, assuming that you don't live in this town that's all white. Plus, you have a higher chance of even moving away from that town. And as an older person, your circle of like the people that you're gonna meet and the people that are gonna challenge you throughout life is gonna be it's gonna be fewer people.
Yeah.
And so maybe you're right. Maybe at first I was uh just generalizing it because I wasn't explaining it correctly. So maybe my initial premise where I said take 20 people and expose them to whatever it is that allows people to stop being racist. Maybe it is the same for young people and older people if you were to expose them to a group of highly educated Latinos and blacks who treated them well, and these people lived in that town. But the reality is that you can't control those environments. So the reality is that the younger people are more likely to, because they're younger, to develop friendships with other cultures and be gradually start learning and become a little bit more open-minded than the older generation. So now that I put it in that like that, then you can see why I'm saying that given 20 older 20 old people that are racist, the likelihood that half of them are gonna stop being racist is very low.
Okay, maybe, but I'm still not agreeing with you. See, when you become, I heard you about all of the layers that young people have less layers and old people have more layers.
Right.
So they kind of have more to peel off to get rid of those misconceptions that they have, right?
Mhm.
But I do believe that some, not all, older people they have more tools, they have more introspection. Younger people, so
I don't know.
some.
Ignorance is ignorance, and you can be ignorant 25-year-old or an
But
ignorant
when
70-year-old.
when you become older, then man, you know what happens? You start becoming dependent on others for care. And who are those people that are delivering care to the older people?
Yeah, I think you're being a little generous, to be honest with you. That it's not that simple, and I don't think it's borne out by experience even, because we know a lot of old people who just they die set in their ways.
And also, you
Especially,
gotta consider that the older people, the ones that are 70, look at the age that they lived in. They lived in an age when blacks and Hispanics had very little rights. So over the course of their lifetime,
yeah,
they have this feeling, and this is just one of the layers that's very difficult about them. They have this feeling that that the European, that the white race is in decline. They feel like that the Mexicans and then the Middle Eastern people are like gradually taking over. They feel that they've lost something or that they're losing their culture, whereas a younger person would not have really experienced that in the past 20 years because when they were born, uh, society hasn't really changed that drastically. So you don't have to worry about that layer with the younger person. But with the younger person, you did have maybe they still grew up with uncles and relatives that are racist, so they have those racist tendencies. But look, we grew up with racist uncles too and racist relatives, so we can understand what that's like. But we also happen to grow up with other people that were a little bit well, that weren't racist, that
more
were
tolerant.
that treated people equally, and so we
Yeah,
got we got influenced by all of them. But imagine if you would have just had been influenced by your racist uncle, then you probably would have grown up to like be a bit racist yourself too. And that's
yeah.
one of the components with the young kids. But the older people have way more layers that you have to like try to get through in order to make them stop being racist. I'm not saying you
You
can't. I'm just saying it's a little harder.
Pero también they are closer to death.
Uh,
So I think that has something to do with it. I think you're more
it,
willing to.
if they're close to
You're,
death, they're more worried about Jesus forgiving them than about a black guy or a Mexican.
yeah,
you
so
know what
I don't
you
think
know what
we.
doesn't help. It just adds insult to injury when it comes to people with those types of mentality, that they keep hearing the claim that by a certain year, uh, the white people are not gonna be the majority anymore. That the minorities are gonna become the majority. I think that doesn't help. That just raises their level of insecurity or whatever they're feeling.
And if you think about it, we can talk about this. Actually, that's a good topic for another time.